this is Eminem. How my name is. Hi kids, do you like violence? Wanna see me stick 9-inch nails to each one of my eyelids? Thank you. Wanna copy me and do exactly like I did? Try acid, get fucked up worse than my life is. My brain's dead weight, I'm trying to get my head straight, but I can't figure out which Spice Girl I want to impregnate. Dr. Dre said, Slim Shady, you a basehead. Nah, then why is your face red, man? You're wasted. Well, since 8-12, I felt like I'm someone else, cause I hung my original self from the top bunk with a belt. Got pissed off, I whipped Pamela Lee's tits off, I smacked her so hard, she fell backwards like Chris Cross. I smoked a fat pound of grass, to fall on my ass faster than a fat bitch, just sat down too fast. Call me a slut, wait a minute, that's my girl, dog. I don't give a fuck. God sent me to piss the world off. Hi, my name is Slim Shady. Hi, my name is Slim Shady. My English teacher wanted to flunk me in junior high.
Well, it's James Kalm, your half-assed report of the guy on the bike. And we are down at the western end of Canal Street at the Hunter MFA Studios, and they've also got a gallery down here. We're going to run in and see an exhibition of a wonderful painter, Stefan Mueller. Excuse me. Well, I think the actual title is Orchidaceous, which I assume refers to orchids. Stefan Mueller Orchidaceous presents a rare look into the late painter's oeuvre during a period of rigorous creative transformation. The exhibition traces Mueller's formal and conceptual evolution from his high-octane, impetuous gestural works from the late 1980s to the spatial complexity, exquisite color, and sensuous forms of his late paintings. With over 40 paintings and works on paper, this will be the artist's most comprehensive exhibition to date. Stefan Mueller, 1947 to 2011, was part of a loose-knit group of New York-based artists, including Mary Heilman, Jonathan Lasker, Elizabeth Murray, Thomas Nuskowski, David Reed, Pat Steer, Gary Steffen, and others, who transformed and re-energized American abstract painting during the late 1970s and 1980s, building on the tenets of color field painting. Mueller's subtle, luminous images anticipate many of the concerns of contemporary painting. The work overflows with visual puns and associations through sophisticated recombinations of Asian iconography, cartoons, encyclopedic decorative traditions, New Age sensibility, and eclectic synthetic color. Through his endlessly innovative use of acrylic paint, his canvases become portals into radiant space. The trajectory of Mueller's work reveals an artist deeply committed to inventing his own articulation of the spatial, an impulse that has particular appeal and resonance for painters working today. Okay. We'll start here. This is titled Me Threatened by Turks, and I believe this is probably one of the older paintings in the show. This is from 1987. Acrylic on canvas, and they don't have the dimensions here, but I would just offhand guess that it's probably about 7 by 8 feet. Now they talk about Stefan starting, or at least this show kind of starting with a lot of his very chunky and exuberant and expressionistic paint handling, and you can see that he's really goobing on the paint, but he always maintains a kind of colored field dryness, and by that I mean that well, he's always playing with kind of the stain, the dry canvas. The canvas is the material of canvas is a very important part of his practice. This is called Delphic Hymn 1989. And he's kind of limited his thick impasto, but you know, I'm a fan of paint and even using a lot of paint, but I think what I'm really a fan of is people that know how to play with the various kinds of qualities and contrasts that you have with paint. Out of my accession, 1987. So we've got a kind of a grouping here of the late 80s. Now I started seeing Stefan's paintings probably in the mid 90s. I guess he was showing regularly. I don't know exactly what his backstory is with galleries, but I do know that there were a lot of painters that were kind of talking about what he was doing, and so he had an influence on a lot of younger painters. This is a nice piece. Untitled Envoy. This is 1996. And I would say that that's probably something like 30 by 30. But this kind of shows you his great color sense. And, well, one of the things that's nice about working with acrylics is you've got all these various kinds of metallics and pearlescence and all kinds of strange reflective pigments that a lot of times you can't get in oil. Well, this is a big show, so I'm going to try to move through as fast as I can. It's titled Hey Tiramisu. I'd say this is probably about 8 by 5 feet. Well, I think another kind of great talent that Stefan had was that he really was able to kind of coax things out of his staining and pouring and dripping that yeah, it's not so easy, and if you don't get it right the first time, guess what? You gotta throw out your canvas and start over again. Bringing Up Baby, 1991, so we've moved into the 90s. You know, they talk about his influences from Asian art, and I'm kind of looking at this with a sense, or thinking about some of the great kind of utopian art movements of the early modernists. There was a whole group out in New Mexico called the Transcendental Painters. I think one of them was a lady named Ellen Petland. Untitled 1990. So here we've got some huddling and staining using the metallic. And yeah, the sketches and I guess that looks like rubber stamps. Sketches and watercolors are nice. Proto-Indo-European. I can see from his titles that he's got a lot of kind of poetic humor there. You know, yeah, these little kind of pod forms that radiate out from this center pink cloud form are nice, but when I start to look at the way that these bleed so nicely, although it looks like it's all kind of just comes together, he's able to use these natural forces with great control and great ability. Just called a wall of untitled works. I don't know, but I would assume these look like their later works, 2000 to 2007. Boy, these are so fresh, they look like they could have been painted yesterday. Stefan Mueller had nearly 50 solo exhibitions during his lifetimes. His paintings were included in numerous group exhibitions across the US, Europe, and Asia, including 2 Whitney Biennials, 1987-1995, curated by Klaus Curtis. Mueller's 2003 mid-career exhibition was held at the Joslin Museum, Omaha, Nebraska. He was the recipient of grants and fellowships from the NEA, NYFA, the Gottlieb Foundation, and the Guggenheim Foundation, the Paula Krasner Foundation, among others. Okay. Between 2003 and 2011, Mueller was a frequent contributor for artcritical.com, Gay City News, and Art in America. His work is held in the collections of the Whitney Museum, the High Museum, the Brooklyn Museum, the Birmingham Museum, the Museum of Fine Arts Houston, among others. Okay, well. I'm sure that it's only a matter of time before places like the Museum of Modern Art jump on this. Okay, this is a nice example of one of the things I liked about his work. He's got a base that he's kind of laid out with these stained plaids. And then he lays in his harder forms or his checkerboard shapes on top of that. And you get a whole different reading on the various kinds of surfaces when you switch from the kind of the stained backgrounds to the more thickly painted figures. That was Gateless Gate, 2000, Untitled. This is nice, the way it kind of fades from a dark blue up there into a light teal green at the bottom. Forbidden Colors 2001. Acrylics on canvas. So this probably is about 5.5 by 6. You know, if you look at these, it's almost like an encyclopedia of various kinds of pigments, techniques, applications, various levels. He's pulling in compositional references from a lot of things. Okay, I like that part right there. For some reason, this little form strikes me as funny. It's titled Myth 2003. Let's say this is probably about 48 by 48. Passagita. (2005). Also, I like Stefan has kind of a vernacular, a group of shapes and forms. The circle is one. There's this kind of scalloped shape. And the squares. I'm actually kind of thinking about Hilma Alfklint. It's titled Mr. Meltremi 2011. And I like the bleeds. Also, he's playing off the shiny versus the matte. I think I saw some of this work, maybe in the mid-aughts, and at that point, I looked at it and I was intrigued, but in a certain way I also thought, geez, these colors are a little, almost too garish. Well, it just shows you what looking at a computer and screens for about a decade will do to your taste, because now I'm looking at them and thinking these are actually very nice and wonderfully modulated colors. It's titled Kabir 2011. Oh, this is a beauty. Ard 2010, acrylic on canvas. So this is probably about 48 by 56, something like that, 50 by 56. And here we get a chance to see some of his index of patterns. You know, I was thinking they talked about people like Jonathan Lasker and Thomas Nuskowski, and some of those people I would actually have to qualify or categorize as approaching pop abstraction. And I know a lot of people don't like or don't think they need to classify things. It's titled Cirque Luna 2007. But just for my own references, I kind of would look at Stefan as as I said, kind of a latter-day transcendental painter. And I said that in certain ways it does make me think of Hilma af Klint and some of the other visionary artists. It's also, it's amazing how clean he was able to keep his colors. I know a lot of people that, they try to have a nice, open, free, loose staining, and it doesn't take too much time before things get muddy and kind of dingy. All of this is pretty clean, pretty fresh. Indo-European 2003. Untitled Cheese Stories 1995. Here he's got some of his pearl essence. Let's see if we can capture some of the sparkle on the surface of this. This is another beauty. Marabi, 2008. And here, the staining in the background has also got some wiping in there, and then he's layered other pools and puddles on top of that. We have kind of a symmetrical, geometrical forms. And more of the punchy colors. Yeah, this does have the sense of some kind of a mystical mandala. Let's see if we can capture the metallic shine. I'm an oil painter myself, and one of the reasons that I like oil is that I like the surface. Somehow I find an organic body to the pigment in the paint that is very difficult for me to get in acrylic. And I often say that there aren't too many acrylic painters that are able to really kind of use or incorporate the various qualities, the wonderful qualities of acrylic paint, but I think Stefan is one of them that did such a great job. It's titled Maya, 1998. In Situ 2, 2000. I schmoozed my way in. We're going to talk with Carrie Moyer, the curator. Tell us about the show.
The show is 40 works of Stephen Mueller's, who is a painter that I've admired for a really long time. He died in 2011. And so I really wanted to introduce this work to a younger generation.
How did you get to?
Very fresh.
How did you get to know him, and when did you get to know him?
I got to know
Give us all the
him
dirty
in
details.
like early 2000s. We both were writing. We wrote for Art Forum and their Art in America and Gay City News, and we reviewed each other's work, so we became friends.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he didn't teach here at Hunter, did he?
No, he didn't teach at Hunter.
Did he teach at all?
He taught at RISD, he taught at Harvard, I think, and SBA. So.
And you liked his work, and you've been kind of, I know you've done some other things.
I'm a huge fan of his work, and it's been a kind of influence on me. So.
Influence in what way? Just his kind of mixy-matchy and weird ways of applying paint? And
I mean, I think he's a brilliant technician in terms of
yes.
the use of acrylic. He's really innovative.
Maybe one of the best people that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, just as how he gets the stains to run a certain way and the bleeds to go this way and that way.
They're amazing.
Yeah, no, it's incredible.
And it's kind of this sort of underappreciated part of the painting world.
Do you find young artists are responding to his work and kind of looking at it now?
I mean, I did this with 12 students, and they were all really into it. So I'm hoping this show introduces a lot of people.
Okay.
And we have tons of painters at Hunter, so.
I'm glad to hear that.
Painting lives here.
Painting lives here?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, Carrie Moyer. And
thank you.
Where did you get the title? What was it?
Actually, it was
Orchidaceous?
Orchidaceous was a word that Lisa Liebman used in a review of Stephen in Interview magazine.
Okay.
So.
Thank you, and thanks for taking the time to put the show together and to talk to us.
You're welcome.
We love it, and here's to the painters. All right, thank you. This is James Kalm reporting on Stephen Mueller, Orchidaceous, curated by Carrie Moyer and Sarah Watson at the Hunter College Art Galleries. You can like this, subscribe and share, and you can leave your thoughts, criticisms, reviews, ideas, suggestions below. But as always, we ask you to thank you, Kate.
Jack is my name.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks. That was great.
Thank you.
Great, Jack. Thank you.